It was the hardest thing I ever did.
We understand. It must have taken great courage and to try.
No, you don't understand. Part of me didn't want to leave. She killed all my friends and I still didn't want to leave. Leaving her was the hardest thing I ever did.
Talk about toxic relationships, bro.
Ever been in one of those? Sounds a bit rough.
I know, buddy. I know, everybody you listen to right now. We all had that girlfriend in the past. Gladly, you've made it through.
Well, presuming we're not 100% male listeners, then some of the girls may have had guys that were like that too. It's not a one-sided thing.
Yeah, simping.
But besides that, welcome to Science Fiction Remnant. I'm your host with the most, Ray, down in Australia.
And this is Captain Chaos in Florida.
So we this is one of those Sans Robert episodes, probably because he couldn't stand to see Jean-Luc Picard have blood sucked out through his face. I think there's probably too much for him.
It was interesting.
Oh, dear. Yes, Patrick Stewart is in this movie. So, if you're a Star Trek fan, you may want to watch it just for that, or not, in the case of Robert.
Oh, you go watch it and thank us later.
Oh, dear. Well, but we'll get to the reasons why a bit later in the show. Dear Mr. Chaos, what have you been watching lately?
Well, my list this week is kind of short, really. I've been watching Kaiju number 8.
Shock.
I went back to Cowboy Bebop for the heck of it.
Nice.
And I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077 and Gears of War 5. What have you been watching?
Well, I've got a longer list than you this week. There's a shock. So I watched a bit of Atlas until I was informed that no, we're not actually recording Atlas this week. So then I stopped. But I was watching it in VR. My son and I, because it was both our birthday presents, because they're not cheap. We got a MetaQuest 3 in the house now. So he uses it during the day and I use it after he goes to bed. I don't have it with me. It's sitting out charging in the lounge room. But I'll tell you a little story about that. He's playing this game. It's actually free, called Gorilla Hunt.
Oh, it's fun as hell, man. I have it.
He played it for so long that he hurt his neck and his arms.
Oh my God.
He's a little couch potato. He'd been sitting there on his iPad way too much. And I keep saying, look, you're going to suffer if you don't get up and move around a bit, kid. So he starts playing Gorilla Tag. And in Gorilla Tag, you move around with the gorilla's arms. So he's doing this. He's like, oh, I got to get another arm in frame. He's doing this like for hours on end. And when you're doing that, it pulls on the back of your neck as well. And being an unexercised little smudge that he is, he's still suffering from that.
Well, you got to think VR. You got to get shape.
Yeah, he does. He's got to get. Well, you were telling me before the show started about that game that you couldn't get through because it was too energetic.
Oh, Pistol Whip. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Hell no. You've seen those commercials of VR workout thing that you can like boxing and shit. Like that's strawberry, bro. Like Beat Saber is strawberry still.
Wow,
that's how much. And I mean, I like playing. I grew up playing Dance Dance Revolution, and I mean, Dance Dance Revolution was so brutal, and I never played like very hard game songs. Like the worst I could do, if you know DDR, you know this song, Dead End. I will play Dead End like in medium and my good days in hard, and I will still hold the bar so I could move my feet. I don't know if you've seen people playing it on the arcades, but there's like a big bar behind it. It's for you to hold yourself up while you going nuts with your feet.
So you don't fly off and land on your face.
Yeah, I mean, the physics is like there's no possibility that you can really move so fast with feet without being holding on to something.
Yeah.
It's just
You'd have to be some sort of, like super dancer to do that sort of crap.
I mean, I've seen people playing on a way like they use both pads, but they use like medium level songs, and they actually dance, and it looks pretty nice when they're doing it. And I mean, I've played Just Dance, but I don't do it like occupationally. I like doing it, so it's like, okay, we had some drinks, now let's go shameless. Have a video of you so I can blackmail you.
Yeah.
And I mean, people hate playing with me because I'm always picking the Lady Gaga and Katy Perry songs.
I like Katy Perry songs.
Yeah, now try the dance one.
No thanks.
And have somebody have a video of you doing that. You're probably gonna.
Yeah, I don't need that subject material floating around the
Exactly.
internet. Thanks.
That's why I picked those songs.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I was a big gamer for many decades, and I kind of got jack of it after spending way too much money on one of those free-to-play games online. I got really into it for a number of years and realized that it was draining the coffers, and I gave it up. So I hadn't really played computer games since, which is why you never hear me quoting sci-fi games particularly much when we're doing this segment. But now I played Ghostbusters Frozen Throne and Warhammer 40k Sisters of Battle on the MetaQuest 3, and it is fun. I like the moving around and the looking around part. It just gives it a whole new, fresh feel. So I think that's going to be my gaming from now on, doing it in VR. And of course, we've got to try Star Trek Bridge Crew between all the hosts.
So far, I've been having problems, but I don't know if it's my Oculus being older. But either, like, that sometimes if we are two, we got to jump in between seats to change stages. Like, usually what it would do is either when I jump seats to another station, it would just go full black and I can hear everything, but I cannot see anything. And it would not debug. Or the other part it would do is that we're playing and my controls just flat out don't work. Like, I still try to do tactical or something, you click on shit and it just doesn't happen. It doesn't move. So it bugs out.
It's annoying.
But I mean, it looks amazing. And I think that it's on my side, the problem. The only thing that I got left to try is playing it by myself offline. But otherwise, like, I really liked it. And actually, Robert and I trying to play, since there's not so many people playing it, we can just do a quick match online, and if we're trying at the same time, chances are we're gonna fall into the same lobby. Like, we didn't even have to like play with a friend, and we got the older guy in one of the tries, and I just realized when I look in the tail, like, we are 3 Balkans. We're not gonna agree on anything.
They do like to argue. So just to finish up my part of this segment, I binged Kaiju number 8 to episode 10 with my son. He wanted to watch some anime this week, and I thought Kaiju number 8 was probably a good choice, and he loved it. And nice. He's dying to watch the current episode, but the dub hasn't dropped, and he just can't read fast enough to watch the show and read at the same time. So kind of waiting for that dub to show up, because it's been really good that the dub's dropped 30 minutes after the premiere. So missing that. There's another one which is one of those, you get these mangakars who write manga that's just completely off the wall. Like, what the French fried frog's legs are they trying to say in this story? What the hell's going on? It's called Dead Demons DDDDDDD Destruction. That is the name.
I have it on my list, actually. I'm curious.
And it starts with an episode 0, which is like 5 years after the events of the actual story. It's Game of Thrones in anime, man. Like, nobody has plot armor. Nobody. I won't tell you what happens, but nobody has plot armor. Nope. There's already been 3 little girls killed in what I've been watching.
Okay, I'm watching this tonight. You just found me a brand new favorite. I love Game of Thrones. And I'll tell you something. Everybody hates the ending of Game of Thrones. I loved it. They killed that crazy bitch. Yeah. She was crazy.
But the whole thing is, it's like in the main part of the story, it's a couple of girls living in Tokyo, and there's an alien spacecraft that has deposited itself, like, it's kilometers across. It's floating in the sky above Tokyo, and every now and again, smaller craft come off it and come down to the city. and the US and Japanese forces are fighting to get hold of the alien technology. Well, they're not fighting, but they're rushing in to get it first. And the Japanese have developed these four-legged tanks with big energy weapons on them that drain the city of power when they're trying to fire. Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. Some of the off the cuff comments are so funny. It's like there's these two VTOL planes carrying one of these tanks along, and it goes above them. They're standing on an overpass over like a major roadway, and one of the girls goes, "Hey, look, there goes our taxes." Just cracked me up.
Oh my god. Okay. Oh, I think that you show me a video out of it.
Yeah, I did.
The plot, the way that you describe the plot, though, at least the first part, or you mentioned the technology they use, it sounds like the Visitors.
It's a bit vish, yes, it is.
Without the technology, that's what it sounds like.
Mm.
And I imagine that the ship then is like Independence Day, like just sitting up there, shadowing the whole thing.
It's got a bit more detail in the Independence Day sources, but
yeah, no, Independence Day. I think that because of special effects, like you barely see aliens. You see the ships and shit. You just have like a little short thing with aliens, and like it's not even 10 seconds. I think.
Yeah. Well, the aliens in this are kind of like what are those yellow guys from the Despicable Me movies? The Minions.
Oh, like Minions?
They're like a minion in a spacesuit, and like they've got one. It's sort of like got one opening there, and there's a single eye in it, and they're sort of running around.
God. Okay, that's interesting. Do they look menacing or they look funny?
Well, let's just say that it has similarities to the Day of the Body Snatchers.
I was thinking more like the Mars invasion.
No, it's not as ridiculous as that. But yeah, I mean, it's a crazy show, and the ending credits has this amazing animation in it. And a great song as well. I always watch it because I always notice something new happening in it. But I highly recommend it. You should check that one out. Dead Demons, DDDD Destruction.
I'm going to start it tonight because I actually do have it on my watch list already. And for those of you that want to know where, I think it's in Crunchyroll, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. Yes. And it's kind of weird. It started just after halfway through the season. So it's only up to episode 4.
Okay.
So it's got a ways to go. It's
sort of it's an interesting beginning, though, how you mentioned it, because you're telling me that it starts time after the beginning. So I'm guessing that it flashbacks to the origins throughout the progress of the story.
Yeah.
Nice. What else have you been watching, man?
Well, that was it. That was my long list. The playing on the MetaQuest 3, Atlas, Koji number 8. And
no! So the list was not long. I think that what was making it long was the D.
Yeah, it was. that one title takes up a whole line. So.
You mentioned Ghostbusters Frozen Throne. Is that what is that game like?
It's a game that is thematically linked to the recent movie.
Okay.
Recent Ghostbusters movie. We did the original Ghostbusters movie from the 80s. I think it was a couple of months back now. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Ghostbusters. I've always enjoyed it, and I've played all the games, even from the Commodore 64 Ghostbusters game back in the 80s. So I've played all of them because I'm a big Ghostbusters fan, so I had to play that one. I haven't played a lot of it so far because I've only had the MetaQuest 3 for about 4 days. But you start out, you're just a courier, and you've been asked to go into this deserted mansion and pick up a couple of things that a Ghostbuster left behind. So you collect up the kit and stuff, and you've got this Ghostbuster talking in your ear, who's obviously monitoring you, and she's telling you what to do. And in that way, it's like a demo, not a demo, sort of the training mission. And you end up back at their headquarters, and the Ecto-1's there, and you go and put on their overalls, and
Oh yeah,
you're basically a cadet at Ghostbusters, and you got to go out on missions and deal with ghosts and stuff. Like you use the proton pack to knock the ghost's health down, and when it's there all confused, you throw the trap under it and catch it.
nice, nice.
It's got the whole box and dice. But yeah, I really enjoyed it so far.
I like it. I like it. There's a game that I bought and I haven't played. It's sci-fi, but we barely talk about it because River is zombied out. But it's The Walking Dead, Saints something.
Saints and Sinners. Yes, I have it on the MetaQuest 3. I haven't tried it yet.
Can that be played online?
I think it's single. I think, but I have to go check.
I have it. I'm stuck like in the second stage. I think it's pretty fun. It's messed up because if you get to taken away by the story or like exploring and you forget to look around, you can see a motherfucker sneaking up to you. It's scary. It's like, oh shit.
Well, when I was playing Sisters of Battle, the Warhammer 40k one, I got stuck in this particular section where I was just getting overrun by cultists and space marines, chaos space marines. So my son said, "Oh, what were you playing, Daddy?" And I said, "Oh, I was playing this." I said, "Can I monitor?" Because what I can do is my phone can show what's happening through my VR through the VR headset. So he was watching on my phone, and I was playing, and he was like, "They're sneaking up behind you! Quick, run over there!" So he was backseat driving, but
nice.
with his suggestions, I managed to get through it. So having a second person monitoring the situation really helped.
It does. It does.
So we did manage to get through that and proceed on to the next section. But yeah, I was kind of stuck. It just seemed like a never-ending combat. And I kept running out of bolt rounds. So
oh shit! So you had to use the hands the saw gun.
Well, no, it's a plasma sword.
Oh, just I thought he had like a little like a
well the Space Marines have chainswords, but the Sisters of Battle think they're a bit gruesome.
Okay.
So they stick to the plasma swords.
All right. Interesting.
But yeah, you reach behind your back and you pull the plasma sword out, and then you switch it on, and you actually use it to block bolt rounds that are coming at you.
Oh,
if
cool.
Like people are shooting at you, you ting 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 ting.
Feel like a Jedi. You should try the Vader Immortal. I think that there's a demo. The demo is pretty cool. Because I think that you get to do a fight with Vader. You do a training, and it looks so amazing. The graphics. That is totally worth it. Robert bought it. That's how much he liked it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not Star Trek, but still sci-fi that he likes.
I mean, I think that Star Trek will be a lot better if you get to like shoot around and stuff like that, at least. But that's the thing that I mean, I liked it still. But that's the thing that is missing, I think, to make it a badass game. I think that's why the lobbies and everything feel a little bit abandoned. Is because it's completely confiscated to the upper deck. You don't move from there,
Oh yeah. So you're stuck at the bridge.
And there's so much more in Star Trek universe, There's so much more into the Star Trek universe than just being on the bridge.
Well, away missions would be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, should we move to the next segment?
Yeah.
Our science fiction remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is SciFi.
Remember, everybody, we have the This Is Sci-Fi hashtag. It's a great place for you to actually find people that are like-minded, that enjoy and share the love for sci-fi IPs that we all love. I always use it whenever I'm posting something about IPs that I like. Just this week, I actually had great conversations with a lot of listeners and friends that we have and collaborators, and mostly on Twitter. And I like to post a lot of cool stories and jokes on on Instagram too. But I think it's a great place. We also have with This Is Sci-Fi something that Robert started. It's a network called This Is Sci-Fi. So if you're a sci-fi creator and it doesn't matter what type of sci-fi, it could be writing, it could be podcasting, video, whichever you like. If you're a creator, you should go and join it. You just gotta go to thisisscifi.net and hit us up in there. It's actually a good effort for us to continue to collaborate, because I mean that's the fun stuff about science fiction, is when you're talking with somebody about that you love. It doesn't have to necessarily be about BDSM. And if you would like, also remember we have a hotline. It's not like those hotlines that you pay a minute so you can hit a hot girl. But you can call and leave us a message, leave us questions, requests that you have, and give us a call there. It is 305-563-6334. I repeat again, it's 305-563-6334. And we'll play your message in our next episode if you like. If you don't want to, you can let us know too. We can verbatim repeat whatever you like so the audience knows too.
We've had some good calls recently, actually. Some good thank yous and comments about the show. So keep them coming. We really enjoy getting some feedback.
We got some big titans calling up, writers from books. So make us feel famous, man.
Special.
Yeah. And we're going to go now to our next segment. If I find it.
There's some.
And for the shout outs for this episode, I want to give a special thank you to Steve Ghostworld. You can find his tag on X Twitter. You see, I tell you, it's Twitter, man. Even Elon Musk is making it look like Twitter again. It's like the pushback was worth it.
The bird.
And you can find him actually. He's a writer and he's a cool dude. You can find his tag on Twitter at MyGhostWorld. Thanks for the interactions, man, always, and for sharing your thoughts on awesome tweets about the IPs that we hold close to our hearts, like Bubblegum Crazy 2040.
We need to do that one.
I don't know what we're waiting for, man. I honestly, to be honest, it's a shame, but I didn't even know the original Bubblegum Crisis until we talk about it, and Robert and you mentioned that there was actually an original one, because the one I watched was for late 90s, which is Tokyo Crisis.
Yeah.
And then I looked it up, and it looks beautiful. I mean, it reminds me, it's not the same as a rom-com that I used to watch when I was a kid called Ranma 1.5, but it's the same kind of drawing. It gave me that vibe of like 80 anime aesthetics, which is beautiful. But yeah, and those are gonna be this is gonna be our shout out for the day, actually.
No worries. Now, I should actually attempt to do a Robert here. Just let me load the software.
I was gonna do falsetto if not.
No,
Diolito Orbidu.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Let's try it.
Where is it? Oh, so many tabs. Here we go.
Holy shit, that sounds like it's coming from hell.
Did it work? I don't know. I can't hear it, you see, so I don't know if it works or not.
It sounded deep, man, with like a nice ring to echo. It sounds like Griswold when he's on the sewers.
Oh, right.
Griswold and the sewers.
Yeah. So, Radio Chaos this week was episode 219, Alita in the Flesh. What would Bio-Alita be doing after the end of Last Order? So, to anybody who's only watched the movie, they probably wouldn't know what that meant, but the original manga for Gumu, or Battle Angel Alita, is separated currently into three components, which is the original, which the first part of which is in the first movie. Then you've got the follow-up, which is called Last Order, which follows on from the first one, and then Mars Chronicles, which moves forward slightly, but then also has a huge amount of backstory about Alita when she was little. So those are the three current sections. The one that's being written at the moment is Mars Chronicle, But Last Order was 19 volumes. So the original was 9 volumes. Last Order is 19 volumes. So you can imagine that there's quite a lot of content in there. And it actually becomes rather, it gets kind of shonen in that it's a big combat arena. And there's a bunch of representatives of different groups fighting in this thing called Zenith of all things.
Okay.
And they're basically fighting to be recognized as a political entity within the solar system. And
when
Alita,
you say, since I'm not well versed on the backstory about Alita when she was younger, you mean her training and her origins?
Her from her origins all the way through her training and everything else.
Nice.
But it does not actually match to what they put in the movie. The movie was a very simplified version of her backstory. And the manga is quite brutal. And I think that Alita's origin would probably freak out some of the more queasy readers. I won't spoil. But Kishiro doesn't hold back, which is probably something that Chaos would like because he likes brutal.
Nice.
Let's just say that little girls don't have plot armor in Kishiro's work.
Just you wait till I start reading that manga, and I'm gonna start just raining comments on your DMs like I'm doing now with the line.
I'm fine. I'm the Alita Army Pope, man.
I'm probably gonna still hate Hugo's guts, that little bitch. Anyways,
you're allowed. I'm happy to start the We Hate Hugo's Guts fan club because
I hope they don't bring him back though. Don't tell me. I hope they don't bring him back.
I hope they won't bring him back. He's dead demon d destruction.
Nice.
Yeah. So basically it's a huge spoiler, but basically you end up with 2 Alitas in Last Order. One of them is an android and the other one her human brain gets thrown in a box and it actually ends up being connected to a supercomputer for a while. But she, at the very end of Last Order, has a biological body bioprinted for her. And she wakes up and Figure 4 is there. He spends an age fighting his way across the Badlands to get to Iron City and then up to Zalem. And then up to Jiru, which is the top end of the space elevator, to find her again because she went missing. She ended up going up there to fight in the Zot. But she formed a team to fight in the Zot to legitimize Zalem and the surface dwellers as a political entity because they were not recognized as a political entity by the solar system government. Earth was like, that's just trash. We won't bother with that. But in the end, she manages to succeed because she's the main heroine. So of course she's going to succeed. But she's got to struggle her way through it. But anyway, so she gets a bioprinted body, and it's the first time she's ever been fully biological in her life. So our big discussion was on how does she deal with that, and what does she get up to with Figure 4 after she gets a biological body for the first time? It was a very interesting discussion. Some of it was a bit on the pink side. So some people were getting uncomfortable. We were talking about what might be the differences between being a cyborg all your life and then suddenly having all those hormones and things that you wouldn't get because you didn't have the parts of the body that produce them. And being a biologist, I discussed it quite frankly, and people were getting a bit, I'll just come back in 10 minutes. I can't deal with this in the chat. So it was a good discussion.
While you're saying all this, I just thinking on my head, the first thing that comes to mind how she deals with it is like first period comes out, like, I'm dying, I'm bleeding to death.
I think that unless they're forewarned, I think that's how most girls react. Because I sure as hell would react that way.
I mean, she doesn't know what is this, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It would be a natural. I mean, I've seen even in movies and stuff like that, that's a normal reaction for a girl that doesn't know what it is if she doesn't has another female figure to teach her before it happens, you know? They think that they're dying or they're sick, you know? And I mean, who can blame it? It's painful and you're bleeding, you know?
No power. You need to know what's going on.
Yep.
That's all there is to it. So, yeah, it was an interesting discussion. The consensus was, you know, she'd probably have a couple of kids with Figure, and then in the end, she'd want to be able to fight like she used to, and she'd probably go back to being a cyborg. That's what we figured, because you know it's what she's done.
Isn't cool.
Yeah, I don't think she'd stay biological. I think she'd be looking at going back eventually, but she'd probably have a few kids first because she loves Figure that much. That was my impression, but you know, Shiro gets to write it if he ever gets around to it. So, so there you go. That was the most recent episode of Radio Chaos, Mr. Chaos.
Nice. So let me ask you something, man. This movie that we're gonna talk about. You guys should go and watch it though. Lifeforce, 1985.
Look,
it's fantastic.
I will admit that it is a B grade sci-fi. It's not top tier.
It's not PG-13, okay, guys.
For the amount of money they spent on it, they tried their hardest. They succeeded in some parts. In other parts,
Let me repeat this. They tried their hardest. No pun intended.
Shush. You're only saying that because there's a naked woman wandering around in
it. With a creepy ass face, bro. I never seen a toxic girlfriend that looks so horrible on body like she does. She's like, I'm gonna suck up your soul. Come over here. She's creepy as hell, but she's a good actress.
Well, you could always fall back on the old faithful paper bag.
Now, do we have a plot?
Oh God, we have a plot. Yes, we have a plot.
We better with this mess. This, guys, we call it the most cursed episode of the podcast.
Yeah,
I don't know more about it.
We should mention we have recorded this before, and Robert didn't get around to taking it off Restream quick enough, and it fell off the list. So this is our second attempt at recording it. Hopefully this one will stick. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's a matter of honor now. We have to do this.
Sure is. I had to fight for a month and a half with Chaos to get him to come and record this again.
But the good thing about it, man, is that you won't ask me about it again.
I won't. I'll stop bugging you. I'll find something else to bug you about. That's our dynamic. We just bug the hell out of each other. So, the plot. The crew of the joint British and American space shuttle Churchill, under the command of Colonel Tom Carlsen, finds a 150-mile-long or 240-kilometer-long spaceship hidden in the corona of Halley's Comet. Inside, the crew discovers hundreds of desiccated bat-like creatures and 3 naked humanoid bodies, 2 male and 1 female, in suspended animation within glass containers. The crew recovers a bat alien and the 3 bodies and begins its return trip to Earth. During the return journey, Mission Control loses contact with the Churchill. Dun, 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 dun. You see where this is going. A rescue mission discovers that the Churchill has been gutted by fire. The crew is dead and the escape pod is missing. Yet the 3 containers bearing the bodies remains intact. The bodies are taken to the European Space Research Centre in London. Prior to an autopsy, the female alien awakens and drains the life force of a guard. She escapes from the facility naked and drains other humans of their life force. The 2 male vampires awaken and violently attempt to escape, but are apparently destroyed by grenades thrown by another guard. The guard, drained by the female alien, revives after 2 hours and has the ability to drain others of their life force. And he's also all desiccated and zombie-like. And when he can't get some life force, he explodes. Because that's what you do.
That's what happens after blue balls.
Yeah. That's what happens when you get sucked dry. You explode.
That's what happens when a man finds happiness at his best.
Penis. It's a joke from another movie. The Churchill escape pod is found with Carlsen inside. He recounts the events aboard the Churchill, including feeling compelled to open the female vampire's container and share his life force with her, leading to the draining of the Churchill's crew's life force. He sets fire to the shuttle to save Earth from the same fate as escaped in the pod. When hypnotized, it becomes clear that he has a psychic link to the female alien, and he reveals her ability to shapeshift. I don't think she was actually shapeshifting. I think she just jumped into another body.
Yes, she jumped into another body.
Yeah, I think that was wrong.
Well,
This Wikipedia for you.
I'm not sure if she shapeshifts or not because she's back into the main body at the end of the plot.
Yeah, no, she went into somebody else and went wandering and left her body at the cathedral.
Oh, okay.
So Carlsen and SAS officer Colonel Colin Kane. God, that's hard to say. Trace her.
British.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Colonel Colin Kane. Yes. Trace her to a psychiatric hospital in Yorkshire. God, that place was weird. Where they believe they have trapped her within a heavily sedated body of the hospital manager, Dr. Armstrong, played by Jean-Luc Picard. No, wait, Patrick Stewart. So Patrick Stewart runs the mental hospital.
He was creepy in that role. Like it took him by surprise. There's nothing creepier than a villain that is the warden of the psych ward. That's scary.
So the two male vampires have survived by shapeshifting into the soldiers. They didn't shapeshift. They took over the bodies, who killed their previous bodies and now are infecting London's population. The female alien escapes with her sedated host and disappears. Escapes from her sedated host and disappears. There was some very interesting moments there of a little bit of BL with the two guys kissing. But they're shooting him up with pentothal, which was interesting as well. So martial law is declared as vampires multiply by absorbing the life force of humans across London. The life forces are channeled by the male vampires into the female vampire, who transmits the energy to their spaceship, now in geosynchronous orbit over London. So the 150-mile-long ship leaves the corona of the comet and wanders over between the Earth and the Moon and parks over London. And it's sort of a bio ship. It's got sort of membranes and stuff on it, and opens up the back and becomes like a big collector. And it's collecting all the life force sent to it. Dr. Fowler, who isn't mentioned until now, but he was at the European Space Agency, and he actually studies death and life after death, things like that. He impales a male vampire with an ancient weapon of leaded iron. He, Carlsen, and Kane surmise that the vampires have visited Earth periodically with the coming of Halley's Comet, creating the vampire legends. He passes the weapon on to Kane before succumbing to the vampire curse. Carlsen tracks the female vampire to St. Paul's Cathedral, where she is lying upon the altar transferring energy to her ship. She reveals that she and Carlsen are now part of each other due to the sharing of their life forces. Kane kills the second male vampire and throws the weapon to Carlsen, who impales himself and the female alien simultaneously while they're doing it on the altar. A burst of energy blows open the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. The two ascend in a column of energy to the spaceship, which returns to the comet as Kane watches.
Talk about going out with a bang.
That's right. That was one hell of an orgasm.
Yep. Interplanetary orgasm.
That's right. That's right. Interspecies orgasm.
Oh my God, man. I think that this movie went hardcore. You can see so much the 80s horror scene on it too. Completely.
as a fan of horror sci-fi, I couldn't go past this one.
I
mean,
yep.
I was going to say putting space in front of anything makes it cooler. Space vampires. Okay, they're cooler now.
Yeah, I think that if there wasn't so much titty time, it wouldn't be that good.
Well, this sort of movie appeals to young male population, and having a was she an ex-porn star? I can't remember. Was she an ex-porn star? I thought I read something.
I think so. I think she was a Playboy.
She was a Playboy
model.
centerfold. That's right. She was Playmate of the Year. So obviously,
I think her name was Mathilda May.
She had curves in all the right places, so you can imagine that having her wandering around on screen was pleasant to the eyes, at least of the male viewers.
Everybody that we have talked about this movie, the first thing that they say is tits. Consistency all across the board.
She also has a pretty face. I think.
Yeah. Well, when she's not looking at you like this.
When she's not trying to suck your soul out, yeah. Or your life force. So this movie had a budget of 25 million, which wasn't a lot for something with this much SFX. You could kind of see the effort put into the SFX dropping as you got through the plot. To the very end, the masses of zombies didn't look much like the original drained person. They look like people wearing Halloween suits. So I mean, I guess they just didn't have the money to really make it excellent all the way through. But you got the idea that they did their best.
I think that in this time and era where the movie was filmed to, you get more use of practical effects and special effects. So the only places that you're gonna see really somebody looking like a real zombie getting sucked dry on their own by the life force leaving their bodies is when a close-up scene where they're laying on a bed or something, but not really them walking around. Even when the guy was at the beginning locked up, that he goes through the rails and just goes pulverized, you don't see his whole body most of this part of the scene. You see like half of the body moving, because he goes so skinny. You don't have such skinny person in numbers.
Well, animating the legs would have been too expensive.
Yeah, I mean this is prehistoric Jurassic Park times in the filmmaking, where you have robotics.
Well, it was all practical effects except for the lightning effect.
The lightning, yeah, the one that we have behind us.
But it wasn't really CGI. I think that was overlay. So I don't really think there was any CGI in this movie per se.
Definitely.
I will mention that if anybody's seen, and most of you should have, if you haven't, why not? Star Trek: The Motion Picture. The effects inside of Vija, like the outer casing of Vija, not like the actual probe, but the big thing that it arrived in, the sort of background colors and stuff, very similar to the effects around the comet in this movie. I think it was probably done by the same special effects people. I haven't checked into that though, but it looks very similar. And I will say that the opening theme of this movie, well, this is sort of leaning into the first time you saw it and what did you think? The first time I saw this was back in 1989, I think it was, on VCR at my college of residence when I was at university. I'm that old. But,
right after watching babes with automatic guns, bikini babes with automatic guns.
That's right.
Oh man, I could get enough of that.
Go
and look it up. Go and look it up. It's in YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Great screensaver. Great screensaver.
and I have the ignominious honor of introducing him to that. Not that I ever owned it. I just saw it at a friend's place one time, and it popped into my head when we were discussing something.
Wow, you just made one person's life better.
So anyway, I had finished making my dinner. There was this big communal kitchen with kitchen bays, and I almost failed at making dinner again, like usual. Burnt something to the bottom of a pot. as I was at that time because I wasn't very good at cooking.
Watching,
And
watching that, I cannot blame you. It's a
I
good
took it into
distraction.
the bar to eat it, and I heard that there was a video had started in there was the kitchen, and then next to it was the bar, which you could buy beer at, because after 18 in Australia you can drink, so you could just buy a beer to have with your dinner.
In the art
Uh,
too. In here
and-
now, but in the art, yeah.
Yeah, but Australians like 18. Go for it. So bought myself a beer from the bar, sat down to eat my dinner, and I heard a guy that I knew said, "Oh, come and watch this, it's a horror sci-fi." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I went in there, and it had been going for 5 minutes, and they'd already got to the comet. So the first time I saw this, I never saw the start, but I kept hearing this music that really sort of was really sort of evocative of sort of space adventure, and I never knew where it came from. And then, like, I'm no shitting you, a couple of months ago, when I put this movie on to watch it again for the first time, because we've been trying for months to record this. You wouldn't believe it. It's cursed. But I heard the opening credits of this movie for the first time. I go, oh, that's the music. I've been hearing that for decades, and I never knew where it came from. And now I know the answer.
I know the feeling. I can tell you by my own experience of that feeling, and it's worse for me because I grew up in the Dominican Republic. Everybody speaks Spanish there, and very little people listen to stuff in English. So I would know how to tarara a song, but I didn't know how music. What was the music titles? And there were so many, like dozens of songs and artists, that it took me 20 years to figure it out. Okay, that's who he is, and let me just get to the fever again because I didn't get to get it.
Yeah, I could imagine that too. Yeah, so I was sort of blown away when I started watching this movie specifically to record this episode. And I hadn't seen this movie since the 80s, so I only had a vague recollection of it. And I'm going like, have I heard this before? And then I realized, no, I hadn't seen the start of this movie before. So it was sort of an epiphany. It's like, oh,
nice.
Answered a question that had been in my head for decades. Where the hell was this music from? So at least doing this episode has answered one of my long-running questions about, but it's actually a really good theme. It's orchestral, but it's got a really good sort of 80s adventure sort of
ominous space opera.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the energy I got from it.
Yeah, it had a lot of energy to it. Yeah.
And I think that from the movie, that's one of the things that compensated for the plot not being of too much depth. As there were many other elements that complemented the movie, because there's a lot of scenes where you just have 2 or 3 people on the frame, and I think that that's one of the things that also, I would say, justified $25 million budget back in that time. It's not so much special effects, but the sets, because there were a lot of sets that were larger, like full streets, and I don't think that that's cheap.
No. And there was vehicles getting blown up and all sorts of things.
So I think that that's where the budget really was used and properly used, if we think about it, because it does sells you the idea that they do today. I mean, you still have in Warner Brothers and places like that actual streets recreation, but you had times where they actually closed streets in New York and stuff like that to film scenes, and it gave you that sense in the movie. For sure.
Oh yeah, there was some product placement too. There was an interflora florist that he was standing in front of the sign for, and he was standing there, and he moved to the side slightly when he was watching the chaos in the street, and you could see it right next to his head, like the sign was there. It's like product placement.
Like, we're not even trying here.
It was interesting. So Henry Mancini, which is a name synonymous with a lot of great orchestral scores was the guy who wrote the theme. So they went all out for the music for this. They didn't cheap on it.
Oh.
So yeah, it was Henry Mancini.
What was your first impression about this movie, though? When you walked into that,
I gotta think back. 19-year-old me, who wasn't as a discerning sci-fi aficionado as
I'm sure that sci-fi was not the first thing on your mind when you were watching this.
54-year-old me. Well, I went for the sci-fi and I stayed for the boobs. That's all I can say.
You were like, gravity, how's that working right now?
I'm pretty sure that all the guys that were sitting in there, because I think it was 100% guys who were watching, they came for the boobs. But yeah, I don't know that I'd call it softcore porn, but there was nudity. So
there was nudity, but I don't think there was. I mean, the problem is that porn itself has changed throughout the years. I think I was spoken about this in another episodes too, but it was more subtle back then. So it will pass a lot more like porn back in the time, but now it's a lot more obscene. It's not so stimulating, So this looks like erotica art, really. When you look at the time, and
I think I would class it as erotic art. Yeah.
Like they didn't go hardcore. Like you don't really get to see a full frontal of her, and they are very subtle about these kind of things. So you have a naked woman, but you don't get more than good teats time on the TV. It's not like you get to see her butt crack or something like that. So it was very artfully done. I think that's the beautiful thing about those times too, and how movies always reflect the times that were made on that matter. I think.
So I haven't looked into the source material for this movie. Maybe it says it in the wiki. I'll just have a quick look.
Have you watched ever something that would recall you to this kind of movie, like any other IP of sci-fi or horror that looks like that, like vampires that suck the life force out of you? Because I cannot. That's the other thing. I cannot put it with anything like it on the class, like space vampires. It's not like they suck blood, even though they were not that innovative when it came to the space vampires, because when they are on the ship at the beginning before they come back to Earth, it looked like an actual vampire.
Yeah,
it had like reptilian wings and it was huge and ugly.
And she said that she had snuck into Carlsen's mind and become the woman in his deepest desires. So she'd taken the form of the woman of his perfect woman, of the woman of his deepest desire. So basically, he was screwed. He had no hope of resisting her, and even so, he managed to resist her somewhat. Just wasn't effectual. So this is based on Colin Wilson's 1976 novel, The Space Vampires.
Okay, so there's a book. Okay.
So I mean, parts of the plot were solid, and other parts are a bit. What's the deal? Are they padding? What's going on here? The whole rushing off to Northern England to the insane asylum part really didn't feel like it connected to the rest of it. It seemed like a side quest.
Well, let me put it this way. I'm gonna look at it from the practical point of view, and I'm gonna sit myself in the director's chair. It's like we cannot really close streets or anything like that, but we can rent a whole building. So you get a lot more freedom in creativity and recording when it comes to making sets, when you have a full building or a full closed space compared to an open space, right?
Well, let's just say that they spent a lot on sets and practical effects for the first third of the movie. That was on the Churchill, bringing the bodies back in, the stuff going on at the wasn't really a morgue, sort of the holding facility.
Yes,
and the scenes of the life force being sucked out of the first guy and what happened to him afterwards, they would have spent a lot of money on the practical effects for that. And then they sort of went, well, the end's got to be epic, so we've got to have a lull in the middle. We can't afford to keep up this level of effects through the entire movie. So then I think they came up with this side plot where she jumped into another body and they had to go hunt it down. And she was actually doing it to distract them from what was happening in London so that they could get the space vampire virus going through the population and suck out all their life force. So it made sense, but it just didn't really seem that connected. The stuff going on in the insane asylum. So, and the helicopter was like, why did she do that? I think maybe she was trying to get Carlsen to come back to her because they were.
She was, but I think that also, like, looking at the motives of the alien life form, she's being elusive because she wants to do this with no interruptions. So she had to get away from it because they were not going to let her do that. And then had a way to drag him in. Unfortunately for her, I will give him the credit that he had the mental fortitude that he was able to collaborate with the authorities and his colleagues to catch her. Because I mean, if you think about it, it's like she's the sexual version of Hellraiser. It's like she gets into your mind, so there's no escape for you to hide anything. And then she becomes the most desirable thing that you can ever think of it. So when you look at it, it's like it's beyond self-control as a human being. It's like it's coming from inside your mind what you want the most, which doesn't really exist. It doesn't exist. What you want the most is a fantasy in your head. But imagine when that shit is real.
Yeah, if you go off to a comment and you find your perfect waifu, then you're probably in trouble. It's too good to be true, which is basically.
And then she's just calling for you desperately. She's calling for you.
Yeah. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see an image that I just shared, and this is the life force being sucked out of the doctor by the first guy who got his life force gratuitously removed by the female alien vampire. And you can see the special effects there. Notice that the room isn't lighting up.
Mm-hmm.
Nominally, if you had such a high intensity electrical discharge, the whole room would be lit up by it. So
why?
They tried their hardest, but
I know how they did that scene, though. You know how they did that scene? You cannot look at it there because for those of you that are just listening, there's a scene of two faces with basically rays of electricity going through their faces, one another. What you don't know, Ray, is that in reality, for them to record that, they got a car battery and then they put one pole into the foot of each.
Sure they did. Sure they did. I mean, look, they shone a blue light on them, but really that amount of discharge, their faces should be lit up way brighter than that.
Yeah, I mean,
and the
lighting itself should actually emanate some kind of reaction on the back. But I think that for them to make that, I think that there's a filter in the main image for them to put that on top, like you said, right?
Yeah, it's an overlay.
Now, what do you think? What do you think about the fact that these bodies would literally go dead, and even for a short period of time, but they would come back to life and even reanimate from a completely decayed state? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, if you've been sucked dry, then you got to suck somebody else dry. It's just the way it works.
But I found creepy, not creepy, but I found it curious. Like, you know me, I try to always like rationalize and find like, okay, would that happen in real life? Is this real life? But I was thinking, like, would it be biologically or physically possible for a body to go into such state and then literally flate up like out of nowhere, even if it's for a short amount of time, but it would reanimate and regain its previous state of life, even if it was for a short period of time?
He needs a good moisturizer.
You think? Well, at least he doesn't need to go to the dentist, though.
Oh no.
And for those of you that are listening again, you gotta go to our YouTube channel. This is the reason you gotta actually go and share, like, and subscribe our YouTube channel so you can see this good stuff.
Or you could just watch the movie.
Yeah, you should. You should actually. You won't regret it. And if you have any requests about it, you can reach out to us in our Discord actually and give me all your grievances about it. I will be more than happy to hear it and geek out about zombies.
See, Chaos has watched this 5 times now, and he's starting to get the PTSDs from it.
I do, man. Like I was telling you, I cannot look at normal titties now because I think of her titties now. I think that she's one of the main reasons that I've gone more into the lolly waifu side.
Yeah.
For a change.
Oh, dear. Moving on.
You know it's bad when I get ready to say moving on.
Yeah, you know it's bad. You're gonna stand on a landmine, dude.
But I think going back to the plot, I think that also the reason that that with Sir Patrick that they went to the mental asylum is because they are trying to decipher life after death.
Yeah.
And I mean, what really took them there was that when she changed bodies, she took the body of a patient, the red haired girl. So that's what took them there initially. But basically, I think that that's the connection. Because if you think about it, when you want to get something that connects what's after life and death, you're gonna try to explore the psyche of the mind to see why they're all feeling so drawn. Because the main effect on it is that it will take over control of the person's mind completely. And I think that Coulson was the only one that showed some kind of mild effect where he was not completely lost in it, and you can still see him suffering. He had to be sedated so he could actually sleep. How terrible is that? That you're having a wet dream and you're screaming on it.
Well, depending on if you're an S or an M, it could be good or bad.
Oh man.
Moving on. Oh dear. So yeah, comets. They mentioned this in the movie. It's on the TV in one of the scenes. But comets were considered the harbinger of doom. One of the earliest words for comet, disaster, literally means in Latin evil star. So I thought that was interesting that they pulled in some ancient Latin to sort of give it. I do like it when the writers make that effort to bring something from the real world into their story to give it legitimacy. I feel like they've made a good effort. It makes it feel a little bit more believable, I think. So I appreciated that. Did we actually hear when you first saw this? I don't think we did. Chaos, when did you first see this?
Whoa, not too long ago. The first time that we were trying to record it, that's when I actually watched it. So I will venture to say not even 2-3 months. Well, we have some months doing it. Maybe like 4 or 5 months ago was the first time. And I mean, I was surprised and I was entertained. It was something I have never seen before like it. I'm not talking about the tits, the plot too. But that's one of the things that allow me to put myself through it 5 times. Is that, like I tell you before, I don't think that there's any horror sci-fi that is exactly like it.
No,
like I cannot think of any. There's no space vampire anywhere. You know.
Oh, I think I do remember one other space vampire movie, but it was nothing like this. It was like a single entity stalking a spaceship or something.
Would you think this is more subjective to everybody's perception, but do you think that this extraterrestrial entity had an individual mentality by bodies, or it was a hive mentality kind of thing. It felt like it was not a hive mentality, or that she was kind of like a queen.
Yeah.
Because the other two kind of look brainless. Like you don't really see more than them carrying on as henchmen the purpose.
Yeah.
But that's how I felt. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, she was definitely the one in charge.
Right?
Yeah.
And it leaves me wondering how many more there were that didn't make it down. How many casualties? Because it seems that they suffer casualties in outer space.
Yeah. Are you talking about the humans or the space vampires?
Oh, the space, the humans. No, we don't need help with the casualties.
They're just humans. Who cares? Well, there was a lot of desiccated bat creature corpses floating around in that ship, and they only saw one room. The thing was 150 miles long, so there was probably more than one room.
It's a lot bigger than the Event Horizon ship, and that one is long.
Yes.
Now, how do you think? I would think that in orbit that could be visible on daylight, wouldn't it?
Depends how far away it was. I mean, geosynchronous orbit requires you to be in a position where your orbital velocity to stay in orbit matches the spin of the Earth. So it's a specific
5,000 miles per
it's a
hour.
specific distance away to be in geosync. I'd have to go and look it up, but that's my understanding of it. So you'd have to say, well, I mean, we had this discussion about the orbital ring in Elysium,
Yeah,
where they could see it during the day floating up in space, and you're like, well, would you be able to see it? How far away?
yeah,
is it?
and the furthest it is, the faster it has to go.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a physicist. I could probably sit down after 20 minutes and work it out, but I don't want to like pause the recording for 20 minutes and then come back to it. It sort of ruins the spontaneity of our discussion. But yeah, it might have been visible.
It's huge.
Well, yeah. I mean, what was the Elysium?
It was not that big. It was not that big. I think that the diameter was 20 miles.
Yeah. So 20 versus 150. I would say it'd be visible.
It should. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's tricky because it makes you think how much power that thing has. Because you need to have a lot of power to make thrust to get that thing to match the orbit.
Yes.
And again, it gets my mind bugged out. Like, imagine the centrifugal force that generates for you to get into orbit before you squash everything inside of it.
Well, you know, I'm no physicist, but I do know that there's like atmospheric braking and things like this, and gravity slingshotting and all this sort of stuff. But certainly, it would have picked up speed to go from Halley's Comet to Earth's geosync orbit. And it may have adjusted its speed so it just slotted in at the right speed to be in geosync. So it wouldn't have slowed down to a stop and then gone into orbit, because you can't do that.
True.
For those who don't know, orbit is basically falling towards the Earth and missing. And then you stay in orbit because you continue to fall, but the Earth continues to move and you don't hit it. If you do hit it, you've failed at orbiting and you've re-entered.
I just realized maybe that's the good thing that stormtroopers are good for.
Orbiting.
Yeah, orbiting.
Because they can't hit anything.
Exactly. They're gonna miss every time.
That's fun.
Oh yeah, man.
That is fun.
Let me ask you something. When I was watching the movie, one thing that I could not help but bring in mind when I was seeing the scenery of London, Britain, cities in that time, the scenes that were in the woods, like when it's on a road in the middle of nowhere, it reminded me a lot of when I watched New York Werewolf in London.
Same era, yeah.
Totally remind me of that completely.
And they did pick bleak looking days, fully overcast, muddy tracks and things like that for their recording to give it that sort of bleak outlook. And of course, an insane asylum out in the countryside, to keep the crazies away from the people, was pretty damn bleak as well. So, yeah.
I'll tell you something, man. If I can find a ginger like that in a mental asylum, I'll be visiting every other day.
Busy times.
Yeah, visitations. What was the part of the movie that made the stronger impression on you?
Had to be when people first started having their life forces sucked out. Before that, it was like, what is going on here? And then the whole clincher for the first act was, well, now we know why they're here. They're sucking us dry. and it was probably the best and biggest use of special effects. And it was the first major shock. Like everything up to that was creepy, but nothing was like deadly, or things weren't happening in your face that was like, holy shit, let me out of here. Until that happened. That's when the shit and the fan came together.
Definitely. I think that one thing, I don't know if they did it on purpose, but I mean, you know me, I love my conspiracy. And you have these old buildings. There's not many of them anymore, but before you got all these buildings that have weird looking antenna cupolas on top of the towers. And they say that was to control or to rechannel the ether that is on the magnetic force of the earth some way or another, right? I even seen of people, and actually this do work. Like if you have a little garden, you can put a copper rod in your tree, and the magnetic energy that it brings into the tree is like you making your tree grow on steroids. But where they had the main event happening, like this is where the thunder is falling, it was a big citadel building with a giant cupola on it. And I don't know if they did that on purpose. It was just coincidence that they did that.
You mean Paul's Cathedral?
Yes.
There'd be lightning rods, I'd say, lightning attractors.
Yes.
A lot of older buildings would have the equivalent of antenna put at the topmost spires with a cable running down into the ground, and basically they were there to catch the lightning, because lightning generally hits the tallest thing in the area, and St. Paul's Cathedral would be the tallest thing in the area because it's a massive church. So rather than have it hit by lightning and catch fire and burn down, you put these, they're sometimes called lightning arresters, sometimes called lightning attractors, but basically the lightning would hit that because it was the quickest and cleanest path to the ground. And the lightning would run down the cable, probably frying it, but not frying the building and into the ground, so that it would protect the building.
Before that, you had trees pulling electricity, and you had dudes that would get kites with keys.
Yeah, not twice.
I'm actually trying to get a tree burned by lightning, so you can see. It looks crazy. It looks like a brain. Have you seen a tree burned by lightning?
Yeah, I have.
It looks insane. Oh, come
on. The weirdest storm that I've ever been caught in, this is just as an aside, I was playing golf in a town called Wodonga, which is across the Murray River from where I grew up in Albury. This is the bottom end of New South Wales in Australia, and the top end of Victoria in Australia. So there's the border across there, which is the Murray River. So I was across the border in Victoria. There's no like border patrol or anything. It's all open because it's the one country. But I was over there playing golf, and the city of Albury-Wodonga, it's combined because it's just either side of the river. They're in different states, but they're basically one city, just separated by a river. And the area of Albury-Wodonga is surrounded by hills, so it's a basin with hills around it, and the city's in this basin, so it's a bit protected. But there's this big hill at the back of the golf course, and where they're playing golf and the weather's a bit iffy. We're wondering like, should we keep playing? Nah, we'll keep playing.
Oh,
Famous last words. So this shitty little black cloud, and I'm talking, you see remember those clouds in cartoons that are sort of like black and grumbly and have lightning bolts sticking out of them? That cloud came over the hill. I shit you not. That cloud came over the hill and dumped hail on us.
What do you guys say? Like throw the sticks and run?
we were at the back of the golf course, so the furthest away we could get from the clubhouse when it hit us. I dove under a gum tree. My friend dove under a pine tree. We had just hit up onto the green, so both our golf balls are on the green, but we hadn't putted yet. The hail came down. I'm like back up against this tree, and the branches are up above me, giving me some protection. But you hear the hailstones hitting the branches, and they're going crack, 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 as they bounce off the branches on the way down. I caught one just behind the ear, but it had most of its strength knocked out of it from bouncing off the branches, thankfully. But then that cloud sort of went, and then it took off, and he climbed out from under the pine tree. I came out rubbing the side of my head from under the gum tree. We looked at the green. It was covered in golf ball size hailstones. We couldn't tell where our golf balls were.
Isn't that dangerous? Though,
we just threw our hands up and went. We just left.
But
we
it's
stopped
dangerous for you to get next to a tree because it actually is pulling the electricity and working like a natural antenna.
Well, it's either that or get beaten to death by ice. Which would you prefer?
Oh shit! Okay, that's not a choice. Oh my god! I've never seen one of those. I've never seen a snow raining, whatever you call it.
So golf balls are about yay big, right? That was the size of the ice.
Oh,
so getting hit by something that size will
break your skull.
Will kill you, one or the other.
Yeah, it will definitely kill you. I mean, I don't want to think of it. This is what a burned tree looks like. It looks like a spaghetti, bro.
Oh shit!
That's how it's. Yeah. And I mean, I've seen videos of people getting fried on rains by thunder, and it's crazy to see because you see somebody just going poof, just drop. They don't move.
Hey, have you ever seen what happens to the beach sand when it gets hit by lightning?
No.
It creates glass.
Oh, because it's so hot that it makes molten.
But you know, the electricity goes into the sand and then it finds the fastest way to disperse. So it moves out in a sort of I don't know what you call it, but it sort of moves out in a pattern. It's like an upside down tree, and you can actually go to the beach after it's been hit by lightning and dig it out, and you get this. You turn it up the other way, and you get this thing that sort of looks like a lightning tree made of glass.
Yes, it looks like coral.
Yeah, coral.
Like coral reef. Yeah, it does look like coral reef.
Mm.
That is crazy.
It's pretty cool.
They sell it actually.
Mm.
That's insane, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a coral reef.
But that was the freakiest incident I've ever had with weather. It was we just threw our hands up and left. We didn't even look for our golf balls.
I never had such a crazy life experience. I guess I haven't lived enough.
You haven't been stupid enough to hang around in a storm.
Well, you will be surprised because a cultural shock when I got to US is in Dominican Republic is common custom that if it's raining, you will see people showering on the rain.
Oh yeah.
So you will see adults and kids just walking on the rain, jumping in puddles in swimming suits, and some either will go. And this is normal. This is not weird. They will go with soap and look for the drain and shower in the rain too. It's normal. Actually, I did it maybe twice here in US, and I mean, I was tagged as a total weirdo because nobody does that here. I didn't go with soap, but I actually put swimming suit, and I went, yeah, in the parking lot.
Well, in the Dominican Republic's probably warm enough to wash in rainwater, but in other parts of the world, now it's too cold.
No, and most people said that also it's that rain is more acid in here because of pollution and stuff like that. Although I don't know, when I used to live in Orlando when I did it, and it was all right. It was rain. I mean, I've gotten wet by rain before.
Well, it save you shaving. It'll just make all your hair fall out.
Yeah, figures.
Yeah. That's white. Now you know.
Yeah. Oh man.
You can tell I haven't done any of that. I still got it all.
No, yeah, you don't get rainwater. I get it.
No, we had so much rain that I had a fairy ring in the front lawn.
Oh my.
I mean, you need a fair amount of rain before the mushrooms start coming up to do their sexual reproduction stage, and yeah, it was a fairy ring, because what happens is that you get a mushroom spore, and what it does is it grows up, throws its spores out in a circular pattern if the wind isn't blowing, and then it dies away, and then the next lot, when it rains again, will come up, and that's how you get fairy rings, the circles of mushrooms, and they keep getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got this fairy ring, which must be like 1.5 meters across, which is what, nearly 6 yards, no, nearly 5 yards. So
wow.
nearly not 5 yards, sorry, 5 feet across.
5 feet? Okay.
A yard and a half. So yeah, it's in the front lawn, because it rained so much. I got this fairy ring. That's like far out.
Oh my
it's a
God.
lot of rain.
How does it get in there when it's actually pollen? Everything is yellow?
No, white usually. Most of the gum trees have white pollen. So
Oh, here it gets everything yellow. And like it gets so yellow you cannot see on your windshield when it's bad. And when it's love bug season too, it feels like you are turning on the hyperdrive on your spaceship.
Oh, because you're driving along
with all the bugs. Yeah, you run out of windshield wipes liquid on that shit.
We do get that problem in Australia on the freeways in sort of the country areas and the highways. You get clouds of insects hovering over the road because it's a bit warmer than the surrounding countryside. And yeah, the windscreen wipers try, but they don't do so well with bug guts.
Oh my God. Now let me ask you something. Do you think that the aliens on this movie would, because they use the comet as a main I would say event to mark them, do you think that they would come every time that the comet comes and basically they harvest us? Because I mean, I think that that's the main thing with aliens. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of theory you want to use, the reptilians, the visitors, war of the worlds, it's like they always come here and we're cattle, so they come and harvest us. And I think that that's the main thing with them, probably in this one too. Do you think that they wanted to exterminate, or they were just getting like their little portion of food and going back with
Well,
it?
no, I don't think they wanted to exterminate. I mean, they might consider it if they needed to go on a long trip somewhere in their ship, but it seemed to me like they were just fueling up on the way past, and they only had a limited amount of time because they got to get back to the comet. So based on how many people there are on Earth now, it would take them years to wipe out the entire place, I think.
You think?
I think so, because of the geographical distances involved.
So you don't think that when they were tackling the city, they were not going for the whole country, for example?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
Don't think they
yeah.
would have had the time.
No, not only that, but I think that when they showed the asylum, that it kind of symbolized they were outside of the outskirts. You would not see that disaster going on in the streets over there.
Yeah.
So I think that they would have inferred it. And I mean, the cathedral at the end, I think that they were super symbolic on going horror full on, making it a cathedral, making it look gothic and horrific.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Oh my god, man, this movie.
Yeah, I mean, they were drawing on like the historical stories of vampires, but they were putting a space twist on it, and you know, linking it to the cycles of the comet to being cycles of vampirism. I thought that was pretty cool as well. They've been here before, and that's where the stories of vampires come from.
Yeah.
Obviously, they landed or however they got down. I mean, we brought them down this time, but you know, the last time Halley's Comet was around, we didn't have any agency in space, so there was no way for us to bring them down. So they must have come down in some formal fashion. Whether the ship parked over a part of the Earth that looked tasty, and then you know,
Yeah, British people, we know you're delicious.
shot the well, no, they were taken there by the recovery crew
Yeah,
that
that's true.
went up to the Churchill. So they didn't pick that spot. The humans took them there. So, you know, but previously they would have had to find their own way down to the planet. So maybe they reversed the collector array on their ship and pushed the spirits of a couple of their people down into people on Earth, who then ran around sucking the life force out of a few people and causing a like a mini plague, sucked up as much life force as they needed, and then returned to the ship and went back off to the comet. Maybe they were waiting for the Earth's population to reach some sort of critical mass before they wiped us all out and got enough energy to go back home, or whatever they were trying to do. I don't know. I don't know what the meta story is about these aliens. I'm just sort of postulating, but I do think that there's an opportunity for more story. But of course, waiting another 84 years, our technology might get to the point where they don't have a chance anymore.
That's true. That's true. I would think that's plausible, but I also think that they might not have a place to go back to. It seems
Possibly.
that, I mean, you look at the proportions of their bodies compared to the ship. The ship is still gigantic.
Yes.
It's a flying city. So, and when you think about it, and they are kind of like in some kind of sleep process, so they can survive throughout the whole journey. I think, at least this is like my hypothesis based on what I see on the movie, that they might travel with the orbit of that comet. So they're kind of hitchhiking on the comet, and God knows how far this comet goes and runs about, because there's a lot of comets that we have that come every amount of years. It could be 10, it could be 50, it could be 100, it could be even more. And if you think about it, it can even create opening for legends about, like, in more ancient times, this would still happen, you know? So they come and go, the sky people.
Well, it would be all dependent on what their eventual goal is. Are they just trying to maintain their population until a trigger event? Are they just working on autopilot? Are they just getting enough life force to keep the crew going and the ship going so that they can continue on? Are they trying to resurrect their entire race? Do they have a home to go back to? Are they trying to get there or not? I mean, there's a lot of questions. Why wouldn't they just wake up all their people, come down to the Earth, and just have a field day? Why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, I think that now that you mention it, that you said there were some holes in the plot. That's one of the bigger ones, though, is that there's no much background story about the villain. You know, they're here to harvest us, and we don't know why, where, and how, and what's their motives neither.
Well, I mean, when you look at the format, it's a movie. You've only got a couple of hours to tell the story, so you can't go into a huge amount of depth. When you look at a series like V, there's way more time to tell the backstory of the bad guys.
Yeah, but I wouldn't compare it to V on that aspect, because V, they actually do try to rationalize with us and get mixed. And they, I mean, I don't think that the movie calls itself Space Vampires, but they behave more like space zombies, because I don't think that they either are they're not really capable of blending in with us. I mean, yeah, whoever they are tricking with their mind trick to suck them in is tricked out, but anybody else that is looking from the outside can tell there's something wrong here. This is not normal. So in V, for example, I didn't watch the original one, but Robert got me into the series that had Morena Bacari. I love you. Uh, and basically, they literally even disguise and live among us, and you don't know. You know, I don't think that these space vampires really were able to undergo that kind of adaptation where they could blend in and you don't know them. I mean, look at the chick. She didn't put clothes the whole movie. She could have. I mean, I don't mind. I'm not complaining. I was kind of disappointed that the red hair kept her clothes on. But yeah, man. How do you feel? And let me ask you something, because we're moving. It's not like this movie has that much depth for us to really go around it. But how do you feel about the conclusion of it? Because I think that it was superhuman, the effort that Coulson did. I think that under normal circumstances, it would not have been possible. And it was kind of an impossible mission where he's the only one that can do it because she's looking for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the unenviable position of not only being the only one to survive the Churchill crew, but he's the only one who'd shared life force with her and had a psychic link to her. So he not only found her irresistible and had to resist her the entire time, but he was the human's greatest chance of actually finding her and stopping her before she destroyed the entire place. So he was the linchpin. He was fighting against his every instinct because she was his dream woman from the depths of his unconscious mind. So basically, imagine from every interaction you've had with, now this is for both men and women, for every interaction that you've had with your preferred sex, try to imagine your perfect partner, somebody who looks perfect for you. The right hair, the right face, the right body, the right mannerisms, everything you want.
Yeah.
Could you resist them?
If I was younger, no.
Probably not.
And if it happens to me now, I'm like, bitch, that doesn't exist. Get the fuck out of here.
You don't exist. Don't give me that.
You don't exist. You're not real.
Cynicism wins, basically.
Yeah. Your mind, it's cynic, but it's actually could save lives. Oh my god.
So yeah, he had to resist the woman of his dreams, the partner of his dreams. That in itself, and our quote at the start of the show basically pinpointed that. This woman was exactly what he wanted, and he had to fight her. He had to fight with his very being to resist her. And even when he did his best to resist her, like he was sweating bullets, he was dreaming about it. He just couldn't get her out of his head. No, it was a psychic link, so you couldn't get her out of your head anyway. But he was messed up trying to resist this woman. And in the end, he couldn't resist her body, and they were doing it on the altar.
And then he stabs her, and then he stabs her.
Well, yeah, he stabs her and himself. He's like, I can't handle this anymore.
Talk about double penetration.
Yeah, and it's I'm just going to keep talking and ignore that one because that was getting us deleted territory. We need to moving on.
Active effort. I'm sorry, Robert.
Robert, it wasn't me. It was him. Oh, dear. Robert would be moving on. So anyway, he was simultaneously unable to resist her and still fighting for humanity's survival. And even then, when he committed seppuku while having sex with the woman of his dreams.
That's a better way.
He
to
then
put
got
it.
sucked up into the ship with her and could never escape her.
Yeah,
His soul went up into the ship and became one of the vampires.
I don't think that will have been humanly real under the circumstances he was. He wouldn't really have been able to stop her and stab himself with her or anything. I think that wouldn't have been possible. Oh, this is sci-fi. This is not science fiction, hard sci-fi, hard science.
Well, after getting down and dirty with the woman of your dreams, what else is there? It's like that. I've done everything. I can die happy. I can die happy.
Just stab her. You already get down with her. Now, I have a theory, though.
Narcissistic approach, I must admit.
Although I have a theory. I always like to root for the bad guys, and I think that if she wouldn't have fixated herself on Carlsen, they might have succeeded. I think that her downfall was not letting go of Carlsen. Really. But at the same time, I think that that's one of the things that makes them look primal and not very. I wouldn't say. I mean, they have a spaceship that I cannot think we have at this point in technology, but that's one of the things that doesn't jive with their nature too. They don't look highly intellectual when it comes to that. They look very predatory on their behavior, and I think that because of that, she didn't come to the solution. Okay, this guy is gonna be my downfall, because really he was the very, very most wrong dude to pick up on, because he is NASA guy. He's the perfect dude to get the guys that need to get you to kill you.
Well, I think getting through the boot camp for being an astronaut is a hard slog. You have to be super fit. You have to be resilient mentally and physically. So he was a hard catch. She struggled to control him. I mean, the whole point, the whole vampire thing about thralls, and putting humans under your thrall as a vampire, they're supposed to be like willing to die for you and all this sort of shit. So he was pretty tough. He was doing his best, and it was a hard slog.
There's a reason that I'm telling you, humanly possible, that wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have been able to fight it off, because I mean, at the end of the day, and I mean, I've seen a lot of documentaries about this. It's highly controlled by chemical impulses and electrical impulses in our brain. So when you have control over that, we are very programmable. You can get a person to do many things they would not do in their nature, out of character. Definitely. So I think that it was for the sake of the plot we had to prevail. People would probably have liked the movie that much if there's no hope and everything is gone.
Well, maybe they just did it like that because they ran out of budget and had to wrap it up. I know. I have to read the original book and see how the plot differed.
Maybe there's a series for this, but because we don't watch Playboy, we don't know that.
I know about that one.
Oh man.
So, Chaos, what was your final thoughts about this movie?
Oh man, I think that this movie, it's something that you can watch once. I'm talking serious now. Like, you can watch once it's something that you're not gonna be able to compare to many things. I think in that aspect is very authentic. Even though the plot is not hard, it's not boring. I think that the action going on of the resolution of the plot throughout the whole movie doesn't stop. Even though you have the side quest, they're doing something to move towards the final means of getting rid of these invaders, and that keeps you engaged in the movie. And I think that this movie is very cultural when it comes to horror filmmaking and sci-fi, to be honest. I didn't know about it, but whenever I talk to somebody that is more related to filmmaking that is before my time, that I mean, like, you guys are the ones that educate me on stuff that I might have not seen, that is not very quintessential, like Space Odyssey. This is very like cult. I would say that this has a cult following
It does.
for sure. But it's something that everybody that lived through that time definitely did see it. I can bet. And I think that it adds taste to your culture, and it's worth watching one time, not 5 times like I did. I do not recommend that. Why?
I don't know. It's the curse. It's the curse of Lifeforce.
Come to me. What are your last thoughts?
One of us. One of us.
No, but
So, I saw this movie back in the 80s and I forgot about it. And then I remembered it and went, that was a really unique setup. You think, space vampires. Yeah, space vampires. There's been sort of stories about space vampires. I think there was one in Star Trek at one point. Can't remember which show it was. Maybe TNG. And it's definitely been another space vampire movie or book or something I read. But, put space in front of something and it gets cooler. And, this movie is sort of halfway between modern sci-fi with really good special effects and the old British sci-fi of Doctor Who and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the special effects were crap, but they just leaned into it as part of the comedy. This movie doesn't lean into it as part of the comedy. They made a serious effort with the special effects for the time in the first act. And then the second act sort of wanders off and doesn't use much special effects. And in the last act, the special effects is a bit meh because there's just so many zombies running around that they couldn't make them all stick figures, all desiccated. They did their best. You're muted there, by the way, Geos.
I was gonna say just to add out to that, you basically can see the budget running dry to the movie.
Yeah, exactly. But, they did use that big scene right at the end with the sword and the souls going up through the life force energy up to the ship. So that was a chunk of special effects budget right there.
It went out with a bang.
Yeah, it did. A bang and then a bang. If you know what I mean. The jiggy jiggy, then the stompy stompy.
And they give you a little bit of blood at the end of this.
Just a little bit. Yeah, there's one or two things that happen in the plot that I'm still scratching my head about. Why did that happen? Like, why did the blood suddenly come bursting out of those two guys in the helicopter and turn into her, and she screams, and then it falls to the floor?
I think that was a vision that he had, not really that she was soaked in blood. I cannot make any other sense out of it than that.
I think that was her soul coming out of Captain Picard and going back to her body in London. I think that's what it was.
It could be.
But they thought they had her trapped in Captain Picard there for a while, but it didn't work out. She got away. But anyway, this movie overall has a very special place. I'm not quite entirely sure what that place is, but it's, as Gio said, it's not like anything comparable before or after. It's one of those, I wouldn't call it a perfect storm, but it's one of those points of convergence of a whole bunch of different things that made it really interesting. Didn't make it particularly good, but it made it really interesting. So if you can handle shitty British special effects, it's worth a watch. It's not worth 3 watches or 5 watches in the case of Geo, but it's certainly worth 1 watch just to, pick up that convergence, that point in sci-fi history that I don't think will ever come again, that created this movie. And I wouldn't say that it's so bad it's good again, but it does have some really good elements and, limited by the budget. They did their best. The acting was quite good. It had Patrick Stewart in it, for fuck's sake. So, his acting was good. And and the leads all acted quite well. It's kind of like the guy who played the T-1000 in Terminator 2. You can't really show off your acting when you're acting very wooden. So the Playboy bunny who was the lead female, she was quite wooden deliberately because that's the character she was playing. Yeah. So she couldn't really show off her acting chops, but certainly the rest of the cast did a pretty damn good job in the acting, and they took it seriously.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean it's a thing, and I would say you should watch it if you haven't seen it, but you're probably not going to have it on repeat, like say The Matrix or Lord of the Rings or something like that. It's not gonna hit you in that way. It's gonna hit you in the wow, that was a thing. I don't think I'll ever see that again.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. So I recommended it as a one watch just to really understand the idea and the point in time in science fiction that it applies to.
And if you watch it 5 times, you can let me know too.
Yeah, you can go to the same therapy group as Gia.
Stuff to talk about. I can give you solace and
Yeah.
counsel you on it.
Yeah. You can cry on each other's shoulders. Oh dear. So on that note, we're up to the next segment.
All right. If I find it though, right?
You got to find the button.
Sci-fi.
We got there in the end. So not a whole bunch of science to really tease out from this one. They didn't have much in the way of futuristic looking equipment. It was set in the time that it was made. So during the space shuttle era, the space shuttle that they used to get to the comet had a special new sci-fi-esque engine attached to it, which you could see in the bottom of the shuttle, to help it get there. Obviously, nothing like that has existed or does exist that we know of. Mr. Conspiracy over here might think differently, but as far as I'm aware, nothing like that has existed or does exist. And of course, obviously, space shuttles aren't flying anymore, so we wouldn't necessarily see that. Of course, they could remake this with Starship as the ship, and it wouldn't be completely unbelievable. But there you have it. So yeah, space shuttles only ever worked in low Earth orbit. They didn't have the thrust or the capability to get anywhere outside of that. So the space shuttle was basically a reusable vehicle to get to low Earth orbit for launching satellites and interacting with low Earth orbit space stations and things like that. So yeah, that was the space shuttle's primary, secondary, and tertiary mission. And despite what you see in some movies, it didn't do anything else. So as far as technology is concerned, we couldn't actually do that. However, if you remember the Rosetta spacecraft, and it was the European Space Agency who did this, so it kind of matches up with this movie, which is interesting. They launched a probe in the 2nd of March 2004, which was called Rosetta, and they sent it off to Comet 67P, which was passing as close as it would to Earth at the time, or well, not at the time. Basically, they launched it in 2004. It took 10 years, or nearly 10 years, to get to the comet. So, yeah, I mean, this is what we're talking about, interception missions. So you launch your ship well before the thing that you want to reach gets close to you, and then by the time you get there, it gets there. So you intercept the target. So this probe intercepted the comet, went into orbit around the comet, and launched a lander called Philae, which landed on the comet and took samples and sent them back to Earth. So we have actually landed on a comet before, not Halley's Comet, but humanity has put a probe on a comet. Not a space shuttle, not people, but at least a probe. So certainly the movie occurred before they launched this probe, which was more than 10 years before. So who knows? Maybe somebody saw this movie and thought, hey, there's an idea. And it led to the launch of the Rosetta probe. And it was the European Space Agency, which is, the group that was in the movie who did the thing with the shuttle. So there you go.
It wouldn't be the first time that we see science picking up something that was seen in science fiction before.
Well, everything is fictional until somebody makes it a reality.
Yep.
So whether it's science fiction that has made it to the screen or to novels or to games or whatever, it's all ideas that somebody has postulated and imagined how it would work in the real world, and then a scientist has picked up on it, or the scientist has had the idea themselves and say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could?
Not only that, but the point that I'm trying to go to too is, if you think about scientific innovation, a new frontier, it rarely is something that you haven't seen before in fantasy or sci-fi. Usually is something you've seen in fantasy and sci-fi. Instead of, oh, this technology, we never seen of it, not even in TV. This is something like out of nowhere. Rarely, not to say ever, but rarely is the case. It usually is something that was written about in some fantasy or sci-fi many years ago, but of course, there's not the technologies or the means to make it real. You know?
I think that 99% of the time, you could pick a modern technology that seemed to have come out of nowhere and go back through all the literature and all the movies and all the TV shows, and you would find it somewhere. 99% of the time. There'd be the 1% of the time where somebody had this amazing idea that was completely out of left field and nobody ever thought of it before, and they worked out a way to bring it to market before it was before it was postulated within media.
Yeah.
But it would be very, very rare, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, don't go further. Look at AI. When Isaac Asimov was writing about it, it was like, oh, this is crazy, man. This is like, nah, this is ever gonna happen. You know, I bet that's what people thought back in 50s with Isaac Asimov.
I mean,
now it's like, oh shit, we're worrying about it.
They've used the term AI for what we have at the moment, but I don't know that it really, like if you consider artificial intelligence to be self-aware, then it's not AI. But if you consider artificial intelligence to be learning software, then yes, we are on the cusp of a revolution in learning software. We're just at the very start of it now.
Yeah, I think that, and that makes sense what you're saying. And I think because the term AI has completely evolved to what was considered AI before, it's evolved now to when it's alive or self-aware, it's singularity, right? But like the robots, like the three principles of Isaac Asimov, for example, I think that it's going more into a combination of, well, the culmination between AI, which is not self-aware, and that singularity. Of course, there's kind of a paradox there, because the three laws kind of really overrules that this thing is self-aware, because if it was self-aware, it would take decisions that don't follow those rules. Hence why it's so interesting, the topic, when it comes to that. It's like, yeah, this is bound to fail, because those three rules, if it's self-aware, they don't worth jack shit.
Well, you get the paradox like in 2001.
Yep.
And you
I'm
get
sorry,
crazy
Ray.
AI.
I'm sorry, Ray. I cannot do that.
God damn it! Open the door.
You know, I saw a meme, very funny, and it was a Kit Kat, but it looked like Tars from Interstellar. It was like the two stick in the middle and then the two on the outside, and it was like sci-fi fans will get it. It didn't say anything else, but you're like, oh shit, that's Stars, and I think that.
Yeah. No, we will have a big long discussion about AI in a soon to be future show about Atlas, the new show on Netflix, because that's big on AI. So we also have to cover Creator as well, which was from last year, which is also big on AI. So I mean, there's a lot of AI movies out there we need to get to.
We really are holding up on it, so it's not everything we talk about back to back. Which
we could do like a month of AI at this stage. We could just do AI movies for a month. would be easy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I
Absolutely.
mean, I'll try and drag Doc Joe back on for the AI talk because he plays with them all the time. He's having all sorts of fun.
Oh yeah,
AIs.
I would love to have him back again. It's always
Yeah.
such a great time. That's one of the best episodes ever. Was the Logan's Run? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it
Yeah,
was
that was a
an
good
amazing
episode.
movie. Amazing
Yeah.
movie.
And a good discussion too. The big problem with getting Doc Joe on is that he can't record in the mornings, which is your evenings over in Florida, and your early morning is getting to be the point where it's a bit late for him because he tends to go to bed, about 9-10 o'clock at night. So
Mhm.
maybe if I can drag you guys up really early, we can make it happen. We'll see what we can do.
Well, you know that I don't have a sleep pattern, so I can
I know
make it.
you don't. Poor Mr. Robert, though.
Yeah, I usually I'm probably showering your DMs for now with Mashuka Tensei when you go to sleep, when you wake up, and
Yep.
when you're sleeping.
Yep. Yeah, I always
bet
know I'll have
you
something
haven't
to talk
told
about.
me. You haven't told me, but I bet you must wonder, does this motherfucker ever sleeps? I bet I put money on the table you have thought that.
As long as you don't sleep behind the wheel, it's all good.
Oh no. Yeah, no.
Wouldn't want that to happen.
Hell no.
So thank you all for joining us. If you want to catch up with us and talk about this IP or any other IPs that you'd be interested in talking to us about, whether we've covered them or not, you're quite welcome to join our Discord. It's free to join. You can set up an account if you don't have one already and hop on there and talk about all sorts of things to do with your favorite sci-fi IP, lots of other IPs. This is sci-fi. We have sections to do with anime and manga and AI art. There's all sorts of things going on there. The meme channel is always very busy because memes are fun. But do join us on there. Have a chat with us. And remember to start conversations. Don't expect them to be started for you. Conversations need a starter. And if you're interested in something, start a conversation and we will join in because we love talking about sci-fi, as you probably gathered by the length of our podcasts.
There's a bunch that I have started already. You can pick up on it, and I
yeah.
love discussions and more of that. I love just antagonizing people. So
He does. He really does. But it's fun. So we have a couple of websites. Obviously, sciencefictionremnant.com, which is our main website. There you can catch our latest episode and the back catalogue. We also have articles on there that you can read to do with all sorts of things to do with science fiction and current science topics. So check those out. We also have a fledgling website called thisisscifi.net, and that one is being built up as a hub where creators can get together and talk about better ways of creating sci-fi content and also experience other sci-fi properties and get into other parts of sci-fi rather than being all siloed off in just Star Wars or just Star Trek or just something else. You can get involved with other things and expand your love of sci-fi. We also have a Patreon. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing here, we'd really appreciate it. You can join on there. You can suggest rewards that you'd like to have, and we'll look into it and make sure that you get your money's worth. But if you would be able to support us, we'd really appreciate it. If a weekly support payment is a bit too much for you, there's always the Buy Me a Coffee. Of course, Chaos needs caffeinating, but more than that, he's saving up for a new microphone. And if you could put a little bit of support in the Buy Me a Coffee, some of that will go towards the new microphone for him, so you can hear him dissing me more clearly.
right.
We also have a hotline, as we mentioned earlier in the show, but that number is 1 if you're calling from outside the US, but the rest of the number is 305-563-6334. That's 305-563-6334. Our AI chatbots are standing by. Well, actually, no, it's just a recording service. But we will listen to that if you send us a message, and we will play it on the show if you're amenable to that, and we will talk around it, and we'll have a lot of fun with that. And of course, if you'd like to do more than that, if you'd like to come on the show and talk about your favorite IP, that is a thing. We've been having lots of guests pop up lately, and we've got some more coming up in the next few episodes. So we're looking forward to that. We always love having guests on because they give us a different take on the IP that we're watching at the time. And of course, the more the merrier, the discourse gets better. So if you want to join us to talk about all things sci-fi and your favorite IP, please do drop us a line, organize a recording session, and we will get on there. We'll watch your IP, we'll get on there, and we'll talk to you all about it on the pod. So thank you for joining us. Check out our back catalog. There's all sorts of goodies there that you can listen to our commentary and our takes on things. Of course, everything's a spoiler, so you do need to watch them if you don't want to be spoiled before listening to the pod. But obviously, if it's your favorite and you've seen it before, do have a listen and see what we thought. And if you disagree with us, get on our Discord and tell us what you think, because we'd always like to know. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Science Fiction Remnant, and we look forward to you joining us on future episodes. Bye for now.
See you next time.